everybody, Ben Woodruff here with another falconry video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about trapping essentials, talking about trapping birds of prey, and specifically going to be talking about the latest book that I had that has come out, which is Trapping Essentials, an illustrated guide to trapping raptors. Now, this book is the second edition, or it's not truly the second edition, it's the second printing. The first printing is this version here that you can't get anymore. It's out of print. But the second version just came out, and I will have links down below to where you can get it from Western Sporting Publications. Now, this is an interesting time in history where we've gone to things being so digital. Well, you know what? I fully support the concept of the printed page, and I think it's very important that we have these things in the future. There's technologies are always changing, formats are always changing, files get corrupted and changed. It's important that we have actual, physical, tangible books. I think libraries are important, I think reading is important, and even though I still do digital reading as well, I still collect and read important books. I work in archaeology and paleontology as well, and I always make sure that the papers, the scientific papers, that I print off copies and have them so I can reference them, because you never know when a digital file will get corrupted. And you know what? There's something nice about having an actual tangible book in your hands that you can read. So I want to tell you the history of this book and why I wrote it and why you should buy a copy. This is not just a shameless plug. I think it's really important. So I got into falconry back in the 1900s, and when I did, there was no internet. The internet didn't exist. It was decades away from existing. And the libraries did not have many falconry books. And what there was did not contain much information. Now, the reason is, falconry in America, it wasn't this time-honored tradition. It was a fairly new thing. It was less than 100 years old, when I got into it. And there was kind of this sort of anti-falconry mentality of a lot of people. And sometimes you still have that today. And the falconers that were in falconry, for a number of reasons, were very closed off to sharing certain bits of technology. The idea was, hey, look, you get a sponsor, your sponsor's going to train you and mentor you, and they will share on with you these little techniques as you go along. They'll share how to catch a bird, how to train a bird, how to make equipment. And it was very much like, no, you don't get this from a book, you get it from your sponsors. Now, my experience, I did have a lot of mentoring when it came to trapping. And I kind of had to fumble my way through it. And I wanted to be able to get a bird. And I made about every mistake you can possibly make in learning how to trap. And I learned how to trap anything and everything. Every technique, learned how to make my own traps from scratch. And when I was done with all that, I thought, geez, boy, this is a lot of work. It would really be beneficial if people could learn from all my mistakes and learn how to do it. Just what are the fundamental basics of trapping a raptor? And so I wrote this book. I wrote Trapping Essentials, again, the original copy here. And I wrote it as a way to help that, because as far as I could find, there was no other book anywhere in the world on trapping raptors. Little books might have a little section here or there that might talk about one kind of trap, but again, people were very standoffish about sharing it. Now, in the process of writing the book, my publisher provided me this book, which is Bird Trapping and Bird Banding. And this is all kinds of things, like trapping waterfowl and how to use mist nets to catch and band little songbirds. But it did have a couple of things on falconry, and that is where you get the section I wrote on the torsion traps and the original Bownet traps. And I took photos and research from this book, and I turned around and made those same traps from scratch, the special spring-loaded torsion traps, and put them and made them and did my own and put them in my book as well. Now, after I wrote the book, the California Hawking Club reached out to me and said, hey, look at this. In their 1998 journal, they had a whole entire issue on trapping, but it was an issue of the California Falconers Hawking Club journal. So it's not something that's in regular publication. I mean, it's 1998. So there was nothing. And again, I found that out after I wrote my book. But I wrote my book to try to help people. Falconers, bird banders, wildlife, biologists, anybody who needs to know how do you trap a bird. What are the basics and what are the knowledge and what's the fine-tuned little nuanced details to be able to properly trap a bird. If everything lines up, it's easy. It's super easy. And if you have one or two components wrong of what you're trying to do, it doesn't work at all. Now, a couple of things. When it comes to the subject of trapping, some people, some parts of the world are very against it. People are like, oh no, that's wrong. And other people say, no, that is falconry. Falconry in and of itself is trapping a migrating bird, flying it from winter to spring and setting it free in the spring and letting it go be part of the breeding population. I know it stirs up a lot of controversy. The same thing, when I wrote this book originally, there was a lot of people who were very adamantly against me doing it. They're like, no, you're going to have this information out to the public. Now, anybody without a license and without experience, without mentorship, can just go out and trap a bird. Well, technically that's true, but anybody who wants to break the law is going to break the law. That was my mentality. It's like, you know what? Especially now in the internet age, anybody could go online and just look at a couple of videos and get some basics of how to trap. It wouldn't have all the nuanced details, but they could have the basics down. And if that's the case, how are you going to stop somebody? You can't stop somebody from breaking the law just by providing them with the information. This information is very valuable, again, to any falconer, any wildlife biologist, any bird bander, and that's why I wrote this book. So the newest cover has a passage red-tailed hawk, and it was the thought that it's like, you know what, let's do an edition with that, because a lot of falconers in America, that's their first bird, is red-tailed hawk. This book has all kinds of different traps. It has Bownet traps and Phai traps and Dho-ghaza traps, Bal-chatri traps, and I have done all these detailed illustrations on how to make these things. I just wanted to make sure that anybody who wanted to would be armed with the ability to do so. I also have some funny stories in the back, that some of the funny encounters that have happened while being out trapping that I think you'll really like. But again, this is a really good book. It's cut and dry. It's simple. It's easy to follow. It's just direct. It's just, you want to know how to trap a raptor? This is the book. This is the way to do it. So again, I'm going to put a link down in the description below to go to Western Sporting. If you want to purchase a copy, I'd very much appreciate it. And I wish you all luck with trapping. Now, again, a lot of people, the thought of trapping in other countries, a lot of people, there's countries where you can only get captive bred birds. I have to say, here I'm in Utah, we have 200 to 300 falconers. And most people are keeping birds over a season, not everybody's getting a new bird every year. But the wildlife departments have done biological studies and have found that a wild take of raptors in the United States has absolutely no measurable or biological impact whatsoever on the wild population. It makes absolutely no difference. In the wild, 80 to 90% of all birds of prey die their first year of life. They starve to death, they get electrocuted, they get shot, they get killed by something, and that's a huge chunk. And the tiny bit of birds that are taken from the wild by falconers a year is hardly any. And it's just part of the natural course. Those birds that are trapped can then be trained and flown for a season or two and then set free back in the wild, armed with better experience and better musculature than they would have had just subsistence living in the wild. So trapping and training a raptor is as human as it gets. We took up falconry as a species even before we were training horses. Falconry is literally the oldest field sport on the planet. And we were doing it as a way to get food, but we were doing it as a totally natural thing. And it's still the same thing today, and I think it's a beautiful thing to preserve worldwide because it's one of those few things that unites all humanity. Just about every country in the world at one time or another had some form of falconry. And with this book, it's good to have this book to understand these principles, even if falconry in your country does not allow for a wild take. It's good to understand these principles. Same thing, if you have a bird that gets lost and it's in a city area where it's dangerous and it's being hesitant to come down, knowing your trapping principles can be a way to get your bird back, even if you don't have a normal wild take in your country. So I hope you can check out this book. I hope you enjoy it. Eventually we might have another edition come out. So let me know if you've read the book, what you think of it, what you would like to see added to it, if you'd like it to be a chunkier book. I made it pretty bare bones and pretty direct so you can just get right to the point. But I hope you enjoy the book, and I hope you'll check it out. And again, if you haven't already, if you could hit subscribe to this channel, I appreciate the support of everyone. And as always, happy hawking.